the entire Old Testament? I mean, honestly, you can't. That's far of a stretch, you see. That's right. If you read the whole Old Testament, if you're going to be very honest, you're going to realize, you know what? There were some spiritual dealings. That's right. There had to be some spiritual dealings. Not everything was only physical. But it was mainly physical, though, right? See, that's why it's the basis. It's mainly. Look at 1 Kings chapter 2. We're going to look at verse 3. Verse 3. Notice that prosperity, physical prosperity, is involved by their physical works. Because remember, it's physical dealings. Look at 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 3. And keep the charge of the Lord thy God to walk in his way, see, physical works, to keep his statutes, physical works, and his commandment, physical works, and his judgment, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses. So this was during the law. That thou mayest, see, prosper in all that thou doest, and whithersoever thou turnest thyself. See, so there is prosperity involved, you see, by their physical works. Now, this is a heresy now, though, okay? Notice that prosperity gospel, I was not able to write it here, I think, so I'm going to write it over here. Prosperity gospel is another heresy you should avoid. Amen. Because this heresy is preached by Joel Osteen and many other preachers today where, hey, you know, give a lot of physical money to God, make sure you do a lot of physical good works, and then God will richly bless your life. That's not true, right? If we're honest Christians. Many times when you serve God rightly, instead of getting physical success, it seems like more lack of physical success. It's more like persecution, Amen. Hardship, and suffering. Right. You see, they're going to a wrong time period, wrong group of people. Yeah. We're all the way here. See? This is all the way back here, you see? See? They're mixing up something, you see? Right. They got the wrong idea. All right, let's also look at Exodus chapter 4. Exodus chapter 4, verse 1 through 9. Exodus chapter 4, we're going to look at verses 1 through 9. Now, because God is physically dealing, see, with physical Jews, then if he's going to prove his power to them, he's going to have to use physical signs and wonders. You see that? That's right. So that's where we get the idea of speaking of tongues, of healings, and all these physical signs going on. But these were given to Jews. Amen. This is not Christian. We're all the way over there. That's right. This is all the way back here to Jews. You see? Look at Exodus chapter 4, verse 1 through 9. The very first sign given, it was intended for Jews to believe. Because Jews weren't going to believe Moses on what he said. So God said, Moses, then you're going to do these physical signs to prove to these physical Jews my power. Verse 1, and Moses answered and said, but behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, the Lord hath not appeared unto thee. See, they're not going to believe me. And then verse 2, see, rod turning into snake. Verse 2, 3, and 4. See? Yep. Verse 5, they will believe. Verse 6, here's a second sign. Put your hand in your cloak, and then it will become leprous. Verse 7, put it again, and then it will be back to normal. Verse 8, this is important. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first what? Sign. That's the very first sign in the entire Bible. And it was to Jews, you see. And that they will believe the voice of the latter sign, you see. That was intended for Jews, you see. Right. Not Christians. We're all the way over there, you see. Right. This was for Jews, you see. Because why? God is dealing with physical dealings with physical people. So it's Jews and Gentiles. There's no spiritual group of people yet called Christians, you see. That's right. All right, let's also look at Romans chapter 3, verse 20. Romans chapter 3, verse 20 through 22. Romans chapter 3, verse 20 through 22. Once you have Romans chapter 3, verse 20 through 22, we're going to also look at Romans chapter 4, verse 6 through 8. Romans chapter 4, verses 6 through 8. Now, remember, church, this is very important, okay? Can we believe that there were some spiritual dealings during this time period? Yes. There had to be, all right? So, we're going to look at some of the spiritual dealings here, which is what Jews overlook. So, Old Testament Judaism, see, they focus so much on physical things, they overlook the spiritual things behind the scenes going on. That's very important to know. Hyper-dispensationalists too, they all focus physical Jew, but they don't see spiritual doctrines that are Christian that they can see. So this will be this is why this is important, because this will be very powerful to use to convince the Jews that in their Old Testament, that Christian doctrine is genuine and real, you see? So this is very important. Let's look at Romans chapter 3. We're going to look at verse 20 through 22. Now, this is one of my favorites. This is what you can use powerfully for Jews. You know how you can powerfully convince Jews that they cannot be saved by their law? Because the works of law are imperfect compared to what? God. Now, during this time period, they did not have the righteousness of Jesus Christ. This is long after, you see. So they couldn't get that yet, you see. So that's why it was what? Faith and works for salvation. But now that we have this, see, the righteousness of God by Jesus Christ's sacrifice, what looks better? Isn't this more perfect than doing your work on the law? Amen. So this is a powerful argument. So you can show them that they're imperfect to God. And if they're an honest Jew, they're going to admit that. They're going to admit that. Look at Romans chapter 3, verse 20. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin. So the law can't save you. Why? Because comparing that to what Jesus did on the cross, his righteousness. Verse 21. But now, see that right? See now. Because Jesus Christ died on the cross, so we can have that now. Now, but they didn't have that back then, see? So they couldn't do that. Now, the righteousness of God without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets, even the righteousness of God, which is by faith of Jesus Christ, unto all and upon all them that believe, for there is no difference. You see? You know, the Jews, if they're very honest, they do not keep the law of Moses. Didn't you know that? Amen. They're not continuing blood sacrifices. Right. And that is very vital for them to get forgiveness of sins for their salvation. They don't practice circumcision. And circumcision was also necessary to follow the law for their salvation. A lot of them don't follow that. They've lowered the standards of circumcision. You'd be surprised about that. So you see, this will be a powerful argument against Old Testament Judaism, you see. And making them see that they can't get saved the way they're doing, and they need Jesus Christ. Amen. But also this debunks this hyper-dispensational heresy that there is nothing spiritual Christian that you can find in the Old Testament. And they cut off the Old Testament from you. No, you can't do that. Christians can learn something from Old Testament. I mean, look at this, man. Spiritual meaning. Not only that, let's also look at Romans chapter 4, verse 6 through 8. You know what's another powerful evidence is David. David. Because he has faith, not works. Really, Pastor? Yeah. Because you know what he did? He broke the law of Moses by committing adultery and murder. Now, he should be put to death, you see, adultery and murder. But God spared him. Look at Romans chapter 4, verse 6. Even as David also describeth the blessedness of the man, unto whom God imputeth righteousness without works, saying, Blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven, and whose sins are covered. When David killed Uriah the Hittite and committed adultery, he should have been stoned to death by the law of Moses, but despite of that failure of physical works, what did God do? I'll just forgive you anyway. See, he just gave him forgiveness without works. Right. You see? So notice right here that there was something spiritual involved. You see that? That's right. But that did not mean that David realized and ignored the truth that there were faith and works during his time period, right? He realized that nevertheless, you see. He realized that nevertheless. But God made him an exception with his sin of adultery and murder. Because if you read his life, about in the book of Psalms, he had a strong works with God, works relationship with God. He was very close to God, you see. He had a very soft heart. All right, now let's look at Matthew chapter 3, verse 1. Isaiah 52. Isaiah 52, Isaiah chapter 52, and we're going to look at verses 13 through 15. Isaiah 52, verse 13 through 15. In that passage, you're going to find out that there was prophecies about the Messiah as king and sufferer. King and sufferer, okay? So this is very, very important. Isaiah chapter 52, verse 13 through 15. Now, what's very important to know about this is that the Jews, they're looking forward to a kingly Messiah, you see, a physical kingdom, because that's what God promised the Jews. God promised the Jews that they will have a physical kingdom under a physical messianic king, okay? So the Jews know that. That's what we believe. So that's an important thing to understand, because the idea of the kingdom, you'll see that especially at the end, because that's what they're looking for, you see, a physical messianic king. But this is the part they ignore. They also got to realize that he's also a sufferer too. He's a sufferer too. That's the part that the Jews, Old Testament Judaism, ignore. Look at Isaiah chapter 52, verse 13. The Bible says in Isaiah chapter 52, verse 13, "Behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high." You see that? So the Messiah, God's servant, is going to be like a kingly reign. You see, exalted, very high. But look at verse 14, his suffering too. "As many were astonished at thee, his visage was so marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men." So notice that he's going to be a sufferer too, because his countenance, see, his appearance, is going to be so marred more than anybody that it's going to be unrecognizable. And when Jesus died on the cross, didn't he go through a countenance appearance that was marred, so marred badly, you could barely recognize him as a man through that bloody sacrifice, you see. Verse 15, "So shall he sprinkle many nations. The kings shall shut their mouths at him. For that which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider." Notice right here that, see, kings involved. You see that? So there is a messianic king involved. So that's just important to know. Messiah as king and sufferer. You know why that's important? Because by ignoring him as king and sufferer, you're going to come up with a ton of wrong doctrine later. All right? And let's cover that now. His first coming. So Jesus Christ came, right? That's his first coming. Jews, when they think about the coming of the Messiah, see, they only think one coming. But they don't see that as first coming and second coming. Why? Because remember the prophecy of Isaiah? Not just Isaiah, but so many, tons of passages in the Old Testament prophesying the Messiah. They said he's going to come as king and suffer. So his first coming, Jesus comes as sufferer, see, dying on the cross. But his second coming as king, you see? That's why you have to believe in dividing. If you don't believe in dispensationalism and dividing, you're no different from Old Testament Judaism. You see that? So you can't blame the Jews on what they believe in. Their belief is right. You see? Their belief is right, but it's in what?